as Jenny mentioned, my name is Lyndon Isles. I'm the Deputy Manager for Student Mobility and Support Services here at the College of Asia and the Pacific. I'm joined today by two wonderful students. We have Andre Kwok, who is currently studying a Bachelor of Asian Studies and Bachelor of Law in a flexible double degree. And we have Sarah Wern, who is studying a Bachelor of Development Studies and a Bachelor of International Security Studies with a year in Asia as a flexible double degree, and is also concurrently studying a Diploma of Languages. So you'll hear from both Andre and Sarah and their experiences with student mobility a little bit later in the presentation. Before we do begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I understand that we might be joined from people all around Australia, so I do encourage us to take the time to acknowledge that and also pay respects to elders past and present for the land upon which you may be. For those of us here in Canberra in the north, we're meeting on the Ngunnawal country. I do thank you all for joining us and for your interest in international study opportunities within the College of Asia and the Pacific. It's a very unique place to study, and it's a unique place to engage in international study opportunities. The college itself is incredibly lucky to have one of the most broad and developed amount of opportunities for studying overseas amongst any of the other institutions in Australia. We have a multitude of programming that goes for both up to a year or shorter term programming in 2 to 4 weeks, which we'll investigate in a little bit from here. I would also like you to draw your attention to the chat function that we have today. I'm going to post a couple of links. These links are for general information around our international study opportunities, both specific to the College of Asia and the Pacific and for the wider university, which you might find useful. I'm also posting the contact information for the College of Asia and the Pacific Student Centre. So the mobility team works in the Student Centre. We're your one-stop shop for any questions that you might have for your undergraduate degrees and studies. And so that ranges from looking at your study planning. So for example, how do I fit an international study tour into my study pattern? All the way through to enrolment, language proficiency assessments, and any other questions or queries that you might have. So we do encourage you to contact us. Once you are a student, we are accessible Monday to Friday from 9 till 5. We also have drop-ins and appointment times as well. So please feel free to check that out. Before we do look at discussing the actual types of programming that we offer at the College of Asia and the Pacific, I think it's worth always discussing why we provide the opportunities to study overseas and why we encourage our students to study overseas. And there's some very well documented and defined benefits and outcomes for engaging in international study during your undergraduate study. And that ranges from academic benefits to personal and professional development benefits as well. So the main intention of being able to study overseas is for us to augment the language and contextual studies that you'll be engaging with here at the ANU and in particular College of Asia and the Pacific. And some of the strongest benefits that have been observed in studies on international study opportunities is that by participating in study overseas in a practical and experiential context, it very much benefits a student's understanding of that content through the practical contextualization that these programs offer. The international study opportunities also work to enhance participants' academic development through exposure to different learning methods, knowledge of research, and other countries' understanding in different schools of thought in disciplinary areas. We tend to see students who engage in international study do better academically. Once they've returned, they're more engaged, they have more of a conceptualization of what they want to achieve during their studies. And I know Andre might be talking a little bit more to that point in his particular presentation later on. We're really lucky in the college as well to offer an incredibly diverse array of languages for study. And obviously being able to study a language in that particular country has very good benefits for your outcomes and proficiency levels, especially for oral proficiency as well. So we offer opportunities to undertake language study overseas. In terms of the personal development, being able to engage in an international study opportunity forces you to expand on your comfort zone and undertake new experiences. So we see a lot of benefits in terms of time management, organization, initiative, problem solving, as well as direction for your future careers. And that leads into the professional development aspects of engaging in international study. So one, it internationalizes your degree. It does look good on a resume to be able to say that I have had this particular experience. But what we always work with students to articulate is that employers are looking for people who have understanding of different cultural backgrounds and norms and can cross that divide. So cross-cultural competencies are really highly valued in the employment sector. The ability to potentially speak a different language is also highly valued, especially in a very small global employment workforce that we have at the moment. Also, things like your problem solving, initiative, right, research skills are all enhanced through international study, and they're all very highly valued by employers. So undertaking an international study opportunity, one, is a great way to experience a different culture. It's an amazing adventure that you'll go on, but there are very well documented and defined benefits that make the investment in undertaking these experiences well worth your time if you're studying at the ANU, and especially the College of Asia and the Pacific. In terms of global programs that we do offer, we tend to categorize them into long and short-term options. So in the short-term space, we have a particular program which is very unique in the Australian sector. It's called the Primo program, and this is specifically for first-year students. You won't find a lot of opportunities to study abroad as a first-year student at any other Australian institution. So right from the word go, you could be traveling overseas as a first-year ANU student in the mid-semester break, undertaking some form of a short program. So these are typically 2 to 4 weeks in a variety of countries and in a variety of disciplines. We also have study tours. And so study tours are developed by ANU academics, and they're offered to ANU students. They're very specific in their focus. So they're experientially focused learning for a particular discipline in a particular country or countries. So for example, we have a really fantastic short-term study tour called Southeast Asian Security Choices, where you will actually travel to the countries that you've been learning about and engage in the security issues for that particular region on the ground in person in an experiential way. So a fantastic way to put the theory into practice. We have a breadth of program called Learning Language Locally. So this is where you can engage in language learning in a host country. And so we have programs in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Japan. There's a Vietnam program as well. And that's always being developed and expanded. So they also range from 2 to 4 weeks. Moving on, we have what we would typically think of when we talk about international study opportunities, and that is exchange. And so that's where you would study at a partner institution of ANU for a semester or up to 1 year. And you could engage in multiple opportunities of exchange at multiple locations as well. So for example, you might do a semester of study in Singapore and then do a semester of study in Japan or the UK or the US. And the ANU currently has over 200 exchange partners. And so for the majority of locations around the world, you would have an opportunity to engage in an exchange experience, as long as we can ensure that that is safe and that you can continue your standard study progression as well. So part of the work that we do in the Student Centre is to make sure that your study overseas fits within your study pattern. So it's not in addition to, it actually forms an integral component of your program or degree. And the capstone program that the College of Asia and the Pacific offers is called the Year in Asia. And again, this is unique in Australia. There's no other opportunity to engage in a year-long focused learning and cultural opportunity for international study. And this is in addition to your base degree. So if you're Sarah, you might come in and you're doing a flexible double in Bachelor of Development Studies and International Studies, and that would take 4 years. the year in Asia would add a year of study onto your degree. So what you can study overseas doesn't have to contribute to your base degrees. And that's where the real benefits come from this program, that you can immerse yourself in an area of focus, including language, without being restricted by your program and base degrees. And so you spend that whole entire year overseas. It's a fantastic opportunity. We have a variety of different locations that you can undertake a year in Asia with, and also a variety of base degrees. So even though we would encourage you to always choose the College of Asia and the Pacific, if you do end up being at another college of the ANU, there are options for you to still engage and participate in the year in Asia if that was of interest for you. With the year in Asia, you would undertake 50% language courses and 50% contextual courses. And so in terms of technical detail, that's 48 units on top of your additional degree. And those base degrees are the Bachelor of Arts, Asian Studies, Development Studies, International Relations, International Security Studies, Language and Science are the areas that you could transition into the year in Asia with. Additionally, my team also looks at internship opportunities. So if you are interested in engaging in a professional development opportunity during your studies, we will be offering those and liaising with you to make sure that you have a great, fantastic time during these programs. We have some key programs in the internship space. We are very much big fans of the Australian National Parliamentary Internship Program. And so that allows you to undertake an internship with the Australian government for a semester. It's a fantastic program. And we also have specific internship opportunities of note. One is with the Australian Council for Military Committee, and the other one is the TALIS internship group currently. And internships are always being developed and offered as well. So there's plenty of opportunity to engage in that professional development while studying with the college. Now, international travel is not cheap. It does take an investment on your behalf to engage in these wonderful opportunities, but there is funding support from the college to assist you in engaging with these particular activities. One, the college itself offers an Engage Asia Travel Guarantee. So this is money put forward by the college to fund all CAP students going on our approved study programs. So if you weren't successful in securing any other funding, you would receive the Engage Asia Travel Guarantee, and the amount varies depending on the duration of the program that you're participating in. We also secure new Colombo Plan mobility grants. So this is government funding that's attached to study tours, and that can be anywhere up to $3,000 to support your travel overseas to participate in a study tour. We have various scholarships such as the Ethel Torrey Language Scholarship, which is available for the study of Asian languages overseas. We have a Clark Davis Ivans Memorial Travel Grant. This is available for international security studies, studying overseas. We also have a CAP Digital Grant, which is provided to students to assist us in generating wonderful promotional materials, so documenting your experiences and adventures overseas. And then there's also an Australian government loan program called OS Help, which you could access for up to 2 experiences during your time here at the ANU. That's it in a nutshell. There is a lot of information to take in, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. I do encourage you to check out the links that I've posted in the chat, and please do ask any questions that you might have via the Q&A function. I am now going to pass across to Andre, who's going to talk about his particular experiences with studying overseas. If you do excuse me, I am going to bring his presentation up, and so there might be a slight delay as we move forward with this. Andre.
Hello. Okay, so hey everyone, so I'm Andre. I'm a second year Asian Studies and law student, and in my first year I had the fantastic opportunity to travel to Myanmar, which I'll be talking about today when through my PowerPoint slides. Just a quick note on what Lyndon said before. I think I think when looking at study programs and short and study tours and exchange, I think it's important not to look at the discipline in isolation. So what I learned in Myanmar was there's something for everyone. So like if you're interested in politics, like Myanmar's political environment is really fascinating. Like I've met a lot of my peers were art students and they did a lot of really interesting curatorship opportunities. And I had a friend who was doing like medical science and was really interested in the aid delivery program. So I think it's really important to really like look at the connections and don't just like look at countries and say, oh, I'm not interested in politics, I'm not going to do that. But in actuality, there's so many links. But yeah, that's just a random tangent. But some background about me. I originally came to ANU in my first year to study a Bachelor's of International Relations and Psychology. And I was very, please go to the original slide. Sorry, I came with a very firm interest in US, China, Japanese, like government politics, which changed after going to Myanmar as well. And the reason how I got interested in Myanmar was if I'm being honest, in my first year at uni, I was still thinking about like, what am I doing at uni? What am I really interested in uni? Like, why am I interested in uni? And just trying to really find my passion. And I was really lucky to have met a lot of later years who were like, oh, Andre, like there's a lot of really interesting international programs. You should check it out. And I was like, okay, fine. And then I did some online research and I encountered the promotional materials for the Myanmar program. And I was keep in mind, I was in my first year, and I was looking at the admissions criteria, and I was like, hey, like I'm technically eligible, and I applied, and I was really fortunate to receive an offer to go to Myanmar, and it was really reassuring to know that I got the New Colombo Planned Mobility Grant, which really helped with a lot of the funding aspects to it as well. So yeah, so because of these like support initiatives, yeah, it just really like encouraged me to really expand my horizons. And before this opportunity, I never thought I would ever travel to Myanmar because I'm like you don't really think about Myanmar, but I think that rapidly changed and there were a lot of knock-on effects after my trip. So could you please go to the next slide? So here are some photos that I took in Myanmar, and I was really fortunate to receive the CAP digital grant, which was super awesome. I got to take a lot of photos to document my trip, which was shared by CAP. So to explain what I did in Myanmar, the main assessment was to develop a policy paper on whatever you wanted. So you can do it on any topic. So I had friends doing it on tourism reform in heritage sites in Myanmar. I had a friend who did work on waste management, but I was really interested in the ethnic diversity in Myanmar, so which led me to do a research project on how Myanmar can better manage its multilingual language policy and the political ramifications of that. So that was super interesting. So on the right, this was a photo of a blackboard at a local Burmese school where I had the chance to interview a lot of teachers, students, and people in the schooling communities in rural Myanmar, which is really fantastic. And that's another thing I really like about the program as well. Like, there's so many like hands-on opportunities to really connect with the local people and to really connect with your peers in researching projects that are really that I find really meaningful as well. And yeah, in the bottom left, there was it was really interesting to see how other cultures and communities live. And yeah, it was fantastic. Like how we've got a research assistant, and with my team, they just show us around. And if we wanted to look at a school or if we wanted to do X, Y, and Z, they would just really help us to connect with the people and just line us up with the best ways we could research. So yeah, it was really fantastic. And this policy paper I wrote was later published by a really well-known online academic publication at ANU, which was super neat. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share what I achieved during my in-country experience. So again, I went to Myanmar thinking, okay, let's just suss it out, try it, just dip my toes in the water. But in reality, it was extremely transformative because I got so many things out of it. So again, going to Myanmar really gave me really really pointed me in the things that I really wanted to achieve at uni as well. So after Myanmar, I became interested in South and Southeast Asia, which was something I never even considered prior going, which really shifted my focus in my studies as well. So yes, the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these overseas experiences can provide a lot of clarity and to add a lot of meaning in why you're studying and really contextualizing your studies. I made a really tight group of friends across the university, which was super nice. And some of those friends are some of my best friends today, and we're all from a different range of disciplines. So I have a friend that's doing medicine. I have a friend that's doing political science. It's just you just meet a lot of really interesting people. And I think the type of people who would also do these types of programs as well, like very like-minded and really passionate people, which is a really nice like group to be around in uni. During the in-country experience, I think my academic and interpersonal skills were significantly enhanced. Like I learned how to do like research papers, analysis. How do you interview people? How do you interview people that's ethical and in an ethical way? I just think this is so much practical, and besides the personal growth and the cross-cultural experiences, it actually does add a lot of tangible growth in the academics, which is pretty sweet as well. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, and I want to talk about like how this transformed my experience at university after Myanmar. So it wasn't just like in country, like I learned new stuff, whatever. Like it actually like was extremely impactful in my life when I returned to Australia. So I made a little flow diagram to illustrate my experience. So in my degree, Asian Studies, you have to do a language minor, which is part of the requirements, which I'm a huge fan of because language learning is fantastic. Prior to going to Myanmar, didn't really know what language minor I was going to do, so I put it off. But I was thinking of doing Mandarin or Japanese because those are languages I'm familiar with in my upbringing, and it was honestly easier. But after going to Myanmar, I became really interested in like the Indian community, like in Myanmar as well. Like after doing a lot of research, I became really fascinated in people movement between India and Myanmar and how they've constructed their own interesting communities and how do they fit into a lot of the political transformations happening in Myanmar at the moment. So that led me into pursuing Hindi as a language minor at ANU, which is, I'm going to plug this as well. Like ANU offers Hindi in class, really fantastic program. It's just a really great community. So if I didn't go to Myanmar, I can guarantee I would not be doing Hindi like today. And doing Hindi is honestly one of the most fun things I've ever done at uni. After Myanmar, I also changed my degree. I came to the realization that international relations was not right for me. It's right for a lot of people, it wasn't right for me purely because I was more interested in the human-centered aspects in the Asia-Pacific region rather than the state-to-state studies. So that gave me a lot of clarity in pursuing Asian studies, and I don't regret it. And I love my degree so much because of the Myanmar experience. And the third point I want to illustrate is going to Myanmar really, again, added a lot of meaning and contextualized my studies, which led to my involvement in the CAP community. So I joined the ANU College of Asian and Pacific Student Society, which involved me organizing a lot of community events, such as like barbecues, social events, balls, and even really cool stuff like organizing an ambassador's breakfast with like embassy representatives and like the consulate talking about international affairs, which is sweet as well. And it also and after going to Myanmar, a lot of opportunities became more visible in my life. Like I'm now an associate editor of the publication I was talking about before. I'm an associate editor of New Mandala, which is a very respected online publication at the ANU. And I think going to Myanmar really gave me an edge in that purely because of the expertise, the background, and the experiences in publications and on the broader topics in Southeast Asia. And I'm really fortunate that I've just secured a summer vacationist program for a consulting company, and the employer told me that they were really interested in my Myanmar experience. So again, there's employers and mentors and people are honestly really keen when they hear that you've done some overseas experiences, because it shows that you're interested in the world and what's going on. So I think that's something to consider as well. And the last part is, I think traveling really like you grow, like I think you become more confident, like how to deal with like uncertainty when things don't go to plan, talking to different people, try new foods when like, oh my God, like you catch the wrong bus and you have to communicate to people you don't know to organize X. So I just think it really provides a lot of like life skills, and yeah, you're just more conscious about what's going on, and it really makes you a more adaptive person. So I think if I can't see any cons of going to overseas programs, because at least in my experience, have been incredibly enriching, both personally and academically. So yeah, my advice is just do it. Like ANU is very fortunate and blessed to have so many interesting short courses like the Myanmar one. And I know there's so many other ones, like there's a Pacific one where you go to Palau. There's another one where you can go to like China, and like another one you can go to like there's just so many. And I think in particular, ANU is the only university in Australia to offer a short study abroad to Myanmar. So I think it really highlights the opportunities and the expertise to pursue a study in a region that you're passionate about. And yeah, I think just do it. Like you have nothing to lose. Yeah.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Andre. And we're now going to pass across to Sarah.
Hey guys, so as Lyndon said, my name's Sarah, and as he also said before, if you weren't here when he introduced my degree, I'm at the ANU. I'm a 5th year currently of like 6 years in my degree, which is totally fine because I love my degree, so that's great. Yeah, double flexible degree in international security studies and development studies, and I've also got a year in Asia added onto that. And I also have a diploma of languages majoring in Chinese Mandarin. So if you want to go to the next slide for me. So how did I even get here? So honestly, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try and tell it shortly. So essentially, I was finishing up school, and I was thinking, what do I want to do? What do I want to study? Where do I want to study? I'd love to do a language. Wouldn't that be really cool? And I looked online basically the next day and found this degree and was like, wow, I would love to study. At the time I was in international relations and development studies. That's what I initially chose, and could do a language minor in both of those degrees. And I figured, why not be, trilingual? So I wanted to do Japanese and Italian, and my mum just was like, no, do Chinese and Spanish because they're similar, but they, cover so many more countries and they're way more useful. So I was like, cool, sure, I'll do that. And funnily enough, to everybody's surprise in my life, I really hated Spanish, but I loved Mandarin. And so I dropped Spanish, got rid of that, did a different minor. And I kept doing my minor in Mandarin. And I just really fell in love with Chinese language. It was challenging. I wasn't used to studying a language, so that was a new thing for me to do. And then I really wanted to do a year in Asia, and I didn't know that I could because of my degree. And through the help and advice of various people from CAP, thank goodness I was able to, and I transferred from my international relations degree into a security studies degree, which I actually love so much more. And through that, I was able at the time to sign up to the year in Asia degree. I believe now if you're doing international relations, you can sign up for a year in Asia, but at the time that I was studying, I couldn't do that. So yeah, but great decision. I went to Hangzhou, which is a city 3 hours south in driving terms from Shanghai in China, and went to Zhejiang University and was enrolled in an intensive Chinese language and cultural course that they offered, which was really fantastic. Chinese 5 days a week, You could sign up and do electives like martial arts and calligraphy, or study of the Chinese character, and all of these different options. And there was literally just people from all over the world, like America, Europe, all around Asia, you know, Iran, like just everywhere. And I wasn't expecting so much diversity, because the city that I was in isn't as foreigner prone as like Beijing or Shanghai. They have quite big expat communities by comparison. So yeah, and so being a white foreigner in China speaking Mandarin was quite an unusual and interesting experience. But to my surprise, it allowed me to speak a lot of Mandarin. Not that I wasn't expecting to, but just, yeah, there were times where my other foreign friends would be, people wanted to talk English with them and practice English with them. But I was very grateful that if I started talking in Mandarin, which I did do 99% of the time, people would just follow suit, and I would learn so much from that. So definitely recommend just throw yourself in the deep end with language, because seriously, immersive experiences like this, you need to make the most of it. Yeah, so you can see in some of these photos, 2 semesters worth of classmates. You can see my bedroom, which I shared with this lovely girl, Daria. She was from Switzerland, and she was part German, part Russian. She spoke all these different languages. She was a very interesting person to live with. And yeah, and that lake that you see there in the middle is Westlake, which is a very famous and beautiful lake, which was in walking distance of my university. So that was really awesome as well. So if you want to go to the next slide, Lyndon. Oh, we'll just wait a second. Oh, well, I actually might just start speaking while you figure that out. Oh, can you find it? Almost. It's all right. I'll just keep speaking as Lyndon looks it up. Yes. So what was my exchange like? Well, as you could probably tell from my smile, it was flipping fantastic. And I pretty much don't shut up about it to this day. So I'll definitely answer any questions that you guys have about it. But yeah, I would say that some of those experiences that I had, which were really awesome, was being my family's translator and their personal tour guide when they came and visited me. That was really interesting, but it was also good to see my language skills develop, because I didn't admit how fluent I had become until, especially when my sister visited, and just communicating between languages for her, I was like, wow, I really have come such a long way. I saw snowfall for the first time, and that was a really cool experience. I tried all sorts of authentic foods. I went to the Dragon Boat Festival, and we were even lucky enough to get an invitation to like a little district's massive like feast function, and they closed off their like little, it's hard to explain, but it's like this little district living area, and they closed it off, and it was like this massive feast, and that was really cool. I spent Chinese New Year. You can see one of the photos in the middle at the top there, with my friend and her family. So that was really cool. Yeah, so maybe go to the next slide as well now. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so there's some more photos from that. Obviously saw pandas in Chengdu, would recommend. We were really lucky, there was a lot of them coming out at that point. Yeah, go to the next slide. So one of my major highlights of my exchange was my trip to Beijing. So I was in South China, and Beijing's North China. So I went, that was my first trip that I had planned on my own, but also my first solo trip. So that was a big deal for me. And it definitely gave me a lot of confidence in so many aspects of my life afterward, like just confidence in planning and confidence in navigating and adaptability, and just asking people for directions in language and all this sort of stuff that just I never thought I could do. So yeah, Beijing, I met a Japanese guy in my hostel. He heard me speaking Mandarin with a fellow Chinese Australian that I met there who was just leaving. And he spoke Mandarin. He didn't speak English. I didn't speak Japanese. We literally spent the next 4 days speaking Mandarin, wandering around, the Great Wall and eating, kao ya, which is like Chinese roast duck, and exploring the Forbidden City. And it was just incredible. Like, it was such a weird experience, but it was awesome and amazing. And I mean, I couldn't make this up, but in Beijing, I would call my parents, and because I'd been speaking so much Mandarin comparatively, because I wasn't surrounded by other international students who, would occasionally speak English with me at my host university, I would call them up and I would literally just forget English. Like, Mandarin was like in the front of my head. English was like in the back of my head, and I'd be like, what's the word for, gugong in English? Like, what's the word for this in English? Like, I just couldn't remember. And it was like Chinese was my main language all of a sudden. It was so bizarre. And down the bottom there on the left, you can see me with a couple of fellow Aussies. They're actually from my college from ANU, and they just happened to wander into my hostel in Beijing. I didn't even know they were in Beijing, but yeah, they don't speak Mandarin, and we had this massive conversation about how our experiences were different speaking and not speaking the language, and that was just really bizarre. I literally was talking Mandarin to my roommate and was like, oh, I should shut the door, I'm talking a bit loud. Open the door, and there's Josie from ANU. It was really bizarre, but very funny. So maybe go to the next slide for me. Yeah, obviously friends, the people that I met, as Andre said, like just so many, such a variety of people and so many different countries. And I just learned not so much about even just China. I learned so much about China, but I learned so much about other countries too. And yeah, just such a range of people. And especially my exchange friends, it was a really unique friendship because we were all foreigners living in China who spoke Mandarin and were studying it at the university. And it was such a unique thing to share. And we would speak like some phrases we would only speak in Mandarin. And it was just funny because I'd come home and I'd be like, I can't just say, this phrase because nobody knows what that means. So I have to like really think hard about my English sometimes to this day. But anyway, so yeah, a range of beautiful people that I met, and I still speak to many of them today, and many of them are still speaking Mandarin too. So that's really awesome. Maybe we'll go to the next slide. So coming home, I definitely want to mention this because it was probably the hardest part of my exchange for sure, was coming home. I had reverse culture shock for like 3 months, and that's not to scare you because it's just recognizing how different your country is when you're away from it for so long. And it was like seeing Australia with fresh eyes and a whole new appreciation and understanding of my own country. So it also brought along lots of different opportunities that I never would have done before. So I participated in a Chinese language competition, and I did like a speech in Mandarin, and that was like, I would never have done that before going on my exchange because I wouldn't have been confident enough. So that was a really cool thing I did. I also made new friends and reconnected with people that I could share my experiences with. So in the bottom right-hand corner is my friend from high school. Hadn't really spoken to her in like 7 years, but she reached out to me because she saw my exchange in China and felt that I could understand her experience because she ended up marrying a Chinese guy and moving to China, and none of her family or friends really get that experience. So it's really cool being able to reconnect with her. In the top right-hand corner is my Italian friend. She came on exchange to ANU and she was in one of my tutorials, and I just picked her out as an exchange student without her even really opening her mouth, to be honest. And it's like I had some exchange radar detector when I came home. And it's cool because you know how to welcome other exchange students and you know how to welcome other international students because you were one of them. So that's another thing. And yeah, I made other Chinese friends in Australia as well. And let me just look, is there anything else that I wrote about this? But yeah, it really just changed the way that I approached my studies too. I definitely have improved in my studies and brought a new insight into how I approach them, especially when I write China essays and things like that, because I not only have a lingual background to it or a political background in my security studies and development studies as well. We talk about China all the time, but I'm able to apply in-country knowledge and understanding of cultural practice and political practice into my studies, which is really awesome. Obviously, my language improved a ton as well, but these are just other things that it has improved for me, and it's shaped my future direction and passion for China-Australia relations too. So definitely would recommend exchange. Also, totally look into all the scholarships available, because I was hesitant at first that I would get any of them, but ended up getting 4, and that supported me my whole year. So 100% go for them, go on exchange, take that risk. Was it scary? Yes, initially I was like, what am I doing? But it really challenged me and it really grew me as a person. So yeah, I've talked enough, but thanks for listening.